everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we're back with some more new decks from the Breakthrough set. Today we're going to be looking at Zoroark and Zoroark BREAK, two very powerful cards from the new set, and we're pairing it with Yveltal today, just because we can use that Dark Energy that obviously works well with the Break, and there's some other good synergy in here as well, so let's jump straight into it. First of all, we're using 3 non-EX Yveltal. Non-EX Yveltal is pretty important for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's just to keep up with Night March. Night March is still one of the best decks in Standard right now, so we need to have plenty of non-EX attackers in our build. So we are playing 3 regular Yveltal, just because we can use Oblivion Wing to one-shot Joltix and Pumpkaboos thanks to the weakness that it has. At the same time, we're getting extra attachments from our discard pile, and that really helps out as well. Sets up Yveltal EX on the bench, and can also set up a few Zoroarks as well, so overall, very important card. We're playing 3. It's probably our best starter in my opinion because of that high HP it has. There's also the Darkness Blade attack that can do 100, and with Muscle Band you can kill Regices, but we do also play Zoroark, who's probably a more efficient Regice killer, so there's that to be aware of, but usually we just use it for the first attack, Oblivion Wing. We're also playing 2 Yveltal EXs, still a very good attacker in this format. There's things like Giratina, Tyrantrum can stack up energy, obviously it does discard from itself. There's Raikous and Magnezones, which you might not think you want to use Yveltal EX in that sort of matchup, but Evil Ball's actually really good at killing Raikous, and if you can use stuff like Hex Maniac to prevent them getting a KO in response, it's actually a decent attacker in that matchup, so Evil Ball's really good against a lot of things. It can also be really good as well at dealing with Mega Mewtwo EXs, if they start stacking up huge amounts of energy. And we also have this Y-Cyclone, another really helpful attack as well. A 90 is normally going to be two-shotting whatever's in our path. With Muscle Band, we can even two-shot Megas, and we get to retain energy, putting it around our board, maybe onto another Yveltal EX, maybe onto our Zoroark pieces. So even if Yveltal EX was to get knocked out, we've moved some of that energy off of it, so that it's ready to use for the next turn. So overall, Yveltal EX still a really powerful attacker in the deck. So let's move on to this Zoroark line. First of all, there are 2 Zoruas to choose from. This is the one that I've gone for. They both have 60 HP. They both have an attack for... Well, they both share the Dark Edge attack, but they each have one other attack for a single Dark Energy. This one is Moonless Madness, and it can auto-confuse your opponent's active. I feel like this one's slightly superior just because if we are stuck with Lone Zorua, we have that attachment. There's a coin flip chance that we're not going to get KO'd in like the first couple of turns. The other one takes a card out of your opponent's hand, I think. It either discards it or forces them to shuffle it back in. It can be good disruption, especially because we are playing a Judge that you can see over here. That can combine well with the Zorua in the early game. But overall, I feel like this one's just a bit of a safer option, having that confusion to try and buy yourself an extra turn in the early game. But let's move on to the Zoroark pieces. Zoroark is a stage 1 with 100 HP and a 2 retreat cost, which actually makes him quite difficult to search out, unfortunately. That's why you can see I've got a little Evo Soda over there. It's a card that I've not played for a while. It rarely ever sees play, but I think it does work in this build, just because it's not level ball searchable and it's not like heavy ball searchable or anything like that. It's in the midway point between the two. So that's kind of annoying, but his attacks and abilities are just so strong. The stand-in ability is the exact same print as Keldio's Rush-In, so once during a turn, if he's on our bench, we can move into the active Pokemon. It helps us get around any status that's going on. I know Sceptile likes to use status sometimes. I think that's one of the only decks. Vespiquen does sometimes as well, just to break sashes, so they might develop Ariados in that instance. So you can get out of poison and stuff like that. Random paralysis from things like Glalie, random sleep from things like Articuno. You know, there's tiny little things here and there where you can sometimes get those stand-in just to evade status, but for the most part it's just to give our dudes free retreat around the board so that we can move in and out between Yveltal EXs or move into a different attacker. Maybe even you want to attack with Zoroark, we can just use stand-in so that we don't have to do a pay retreat from our current active Pokemon, which is really nice. And then we have this attack Mind Jack, which does 10 damage plus 30 more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and this can be really, really huge at times. Most of the time you're going to have Floatstone on, so it's rarely going to be one-hitting EX Pokemon, but it's definitely great for killing stuff like Regices, as I mentioned earlier, and if we do sometimes put that Muscle Band on board, we can hit 180 if they have a full bench, which is pretty insane. So if For just a DCE cost, this is actually really, really good, seeing as though we want him on our bench anyway just for that free retreat. We can Y-Cyclone DCs onto Zoroark as well, so sometimes you don't even have to charge him up, but he's always threatening the Mind Jack, so your opponent has to manage their board a lot more carefully, and it sometimes means that they can't put down an extra Shaymin, or they're too scared to put down, you know, like another Zubat or another Bronzor or something like that. Decks that need full benches, Zoroark can really punish them for needing that sort of requirement, so that's really good. And then going into the Zoroark break, it's really annoying that we can't flip this card around because it's a lot easier to read that way. But we jump up to 140 HP, which is nice. It means that we're out of range from stuff like Mega Manectric. This is a card that could cause this deck a lot of issues without the Zoroark break, so it's good that we have this extra HP. It's also really good against Giratina because they can't one-shot us either. And it's really good in that instance because Giratina also can be an issue without that HP buff. And then the Zoroark breaks attack, which is absolutely awesome. Foul Play chooses one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and uses it as its own for a single Darkness Energy. And that is very, very good value for what you're getting out of the attack for the most part. There's some great targets. I just mentioned two of them. Giratina is a phenomenal target to use Foul Play with. Giratina is a very, very, very playable card right now, and it's for 4 energy attachments, which is pretty insane. I guess you can call it 2 energy attachments, but, you know, Double Dragon and Double Colorless, but it's still kind of clunky to get going, and even then it sees play. So on a non-EX for 1 Darkness Energy, that's absolutely insane. Plus, you stop the Giratina from being able to attach their own Double Dragons in the next, like, 1 or 2 turns. So straight away, we flip the Giratina matchup to be straight in our favour. We can steal Turbo Bolts as well, so that we can set up Zoroarks on the bench for the Manectric matchup, meaning that we don't even need Yveltal EX, which would be problematic for us in the matchup, so that's really awesome. Also, we can copy things like Quaking Punch if we're going to get hit with a Seismitoad. All of these things we can do for a single Darkness Energy on a non-EX with that sort of HP. It's pretty awesome, and that's why we're playing 2 in here. A couple other fun combos we can try and go for. We can sometimes capture up Shaymins for Sky Returns if we want to heal our Zoroark break or retain some energy. We can also capture up Hoopers and then do a 100 damage snipe to any of our opponent's bench Pokemon for a single Darkness Energy. Absolutely ridiculous. So keep an eye out on your opponent's bench. Lysandre can be a huge help in this matchup. Thanks to Zoroark break, we can put a lot of threats around the board with our opponent's attacks, really. So this really becomes powerful as your opponent starts to play stuff down. So I like having 2 in here. It really helps in a certain couple of matchups in particular. But then at random points in a game, that Foul Play can give you ridiculous value for a single 1 Darkness Energy, which is pretty awesome because it means that we can commit other energy elsewhere. For example, putting it on Yveltal EX, stacking that up to get a big Evil Ball later on in the game because Zoroark is so cheap. Onto our trainers now. We have a couple of one-offs. I like having 1 Escape Rope in here. Again, it's one of these situations when people are trying to play around Zoroark. They might throw something up that's pretty useless. We can just play the Escape Rope and then stand in once again to get our Break Evolution back into the active to get good value out of him there. Also, just if we are going to be hit with something like Hex Maniac and we are getting stalled, we can still have that option with the Escape Rope, which I quite like. We have 1 Super Rod in here as well. A 3-3-2 line of the Zoroark I feel is pretty safe. We're also playing a low count of the EX just because it's a bit of a liability against Manectric, against Magnezone Raikou, and against Night March. So I just want the 2 because Super Rod gives us that insurance policy that we can get 1 or 2 of these cards back if we have to Ultra Ball them early or if we don't want to bench them but then they become useful later on in the game, stuff like that. It can also recover some energy. That's why we get away with having an 11 energy count. It's still fairly average, seeing as though we have recovery from Oblivion Wing. But again, Super Rod just helps us out. If we are up against like an energy denial deck, that could be 3 energy straight back into the deck. It's just great utility overall. A couple other one-offs. We have a single Professor's Letter that can grab 2 energy. It's just more searchable because we have Trainer's Mails to get into Letter, which then gets us into energy, so that's a nice option. And like I say, we are playing the single Evo Soda. Not completely sold on this, just because the Ultra Balls can be quite painful in this deck. We are essentially looking for a stage 2 line, but you can't even rare candy in the middle. So you do need a lot of ball search to keep finding Zoroark pieces. especially because you kind of want one to stick on board for this stand-in. You don't necessarily want to attack with Zoroark early, because losing the Zoroark in battle means that you don't have this free retreat, so oftentimes you want to find 1 or 2 Zoroarks per game. So this Evo Soda puts the pressure off of Ultra Ball that tiny little bit, and it works for Break Evolution as well, so Evo Soda is going to be useful for 2 of the stages, which is nice. So we do have 3 Trainer's Mail. It's just a good consistency booster. I don't think I've played a deck without Trainer's Mail for quite a while, since its release pretty much. It's just an amazing card. I think I missed these guys. 2 Battle Compressor as well. It combines nicely with Oblivion Wing. And we are playing, as you can see, a bunch of one-off supporters. And because we have maximum copies of VS Seeker, Compressor can be a good consistency booster early on, getting us into the supporters that we need early in the game, and also can help us dump ones that we don't necessarily need for the matchup. For example, if we're up against, I don't know, a mirror match, I guess the stand-in's not too important, so we can throw Hex Maniac away. Stuff like that, you know. Other times you want to put something like Hex Maniac in the discard pile early, because then we have more outs to it, thanks to our 4 VS Seeker. So different options for us with Compressor. I quite like having a couple in here. Thins the deck out for us, so that we don't draw as dead normally. So yeah, we are maxing out the 4 Ultra Ball. Pretty important. We need to keep finding Zoroark pieces, basically. And it's good for finding Shaymin, of course. Maxing out the VS Seeker, I mentioned the combo with Battle Compressor. That's clearly an option. I've also said how important Lysandre can be in combination with Zoroark BREAK. So it's pretty good to max this out as well. Let's look at some of these one-off supporters. 1 Hex Maniac. It's pretty important against Magnezone Raikou. It's also very important against some Bat variants, and very important against Bronzong variants. Whenever you can get a Hex Maniac, it's almost always going to be clutch in each of those matchups, really. So Hex Maniac, very good for keeping us in the game against those sorts of decks. This Yveltal Zoroark deck, it can sometimes go really fast and need to chain Sycamores to get you huge energy counts, but sometimes you can sort of sit back and waste VS Seekers on Hex Maniacs when you don't really need draw, because you've already got like your Double Colorless on board, or you've got your single Dark Energy to attack with Zoroark. So a lot of the time you do have the sort of space to use Hex Maniacs during your game via VS Seeker, which is pretty nice. We're also playing 1 Judge. Like I just mentioned, sometimes, especially when we're going for the Yveltal EX as our main attacker, we really don't need much going on. As long as we have energy in the discard pile and we're using stuff like Oblivion Wing, we can judge ourselves knowing that we don't really need much from our hand. And against more complex decks like the Magnezone Raikou, when they need to find stuff like Candy into Magnezone, Judge can be really annoying for them in the opening turns, just getting them into garbage, really. It's the only hand disruption we have in the entire deck, and I'm a big fan of Judge, really. It can sometimes just win you games straight away, especially if you can use it early. It's pretty nice. A couple other one-offs. 1 Fan Club. Much like the Evo Soda, I want to release the pressure off of Ultra Ball. We have a lot of Pokemon search in here with the 4, the Compressor, not the Compressor, the Fan Club, and the Evo Soda. So again, it's just trying to get the Pokemon out as quickly as possible. Getting 1 or 2 Zorua out early is pretty nice. And that's often the thing we're going to compress away early on in the game, because you want to get VS Seeker into this quite early. We are also playing 1 Xerosic. It can help out against Giratina as well. Can also help out against Seismitoad variants, Tyrantrum variants, if they choose to keep their Double Dragon on their Tyrantrum. Can help out against a bunch of different things, even Night March in certain situations if you don't have the KO. So yeah, Xerosic's really nice. It can also get rid of opponents' Floatstones on their own Zoroarks. It can get rid of Headringers on some of our Yveltal EXs. Bunch of applications for Xerosic. I put him into a lot of my decks these days, just because he has so much versatility. Here are the 2 Lysandre, very important for this deck. We can hit great numbers on Shaymin. Y-Cyclone plus Muscle Band kills Shaymin, which is awesome. And of course, the Zoroark BREAK, it just opens up so many doors for this foul play attack, so we want to have a high Lysandre count for sure. Finally, for supporters, 4 Sycamore, pretty standard. Dump and draw is nice. We can get rid of Darks for the Oblivion Wings. We can always be pretty happy as long as we know we have Super Rod in the deck. We don't have to worry about discarding too much, and we know we can recover stuff back. So Sycamore, very, very nice. Onto our stadium. I've actually gone for 2 Parallel City in here, and it's kind of an interesting one. I want to have something to disrupt Magnezone decks once again, to stop them having like 2 Octillery and a couple of Magnezone. I really just don't want that to happen. So I want to limit their bench size so that they're stuck having to find switching cards and limited to only 1 Magnezone in play, so that if I'm ever able to Lysandre and kill it, they can be in a really awkward spot. So it's often in here for the Magnezone matchup. It's a very similar case for the Bronzong matchup. I want to limit my opponent to only 1 or 2 Bronzongs maximum, and then 1 or 2 Pokemon. And if they're playing like a Bronzong boxy style build, they're often going to fill their bench fully. So oftentimes I'm going to throw the limiting bench to my opponent's side of the field to try and harm them as best I can. It does have a bit of anti-synergy with Zoroark, so you have to be careful about playing it, but in certain matchups you sort of have to do it. Also, we can sometimes flip it the other way to try and reduce damage for stuff like Glalie decks, so that they can't one-shot Yveltal EX, and other things, you know, Yveltal EX, so that it can't one-shot Zoroark, stuff like that. It can be kind of nice for us, really. Onto the tools, we have 2 Floatstone, obviously working fantastically well with the Zoroark. Oftentimes when we are using stand-in, it's so that we can actually attack, so I feel like only a couple of Floatstone is pretty much all we need. They don't always have to be on Zoroark, sometimes they can find their way onto stuff like Yveltal. So, you know, putting 1 on a Zoroark in a game is pretty useful. I don't feel like you need more than 2, especially because we have the escape rope as well. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with actually just using stand-in just to attack with Zoroark, so we can do that also. We also have the 3 Muscle Band. It works really nicely with Mind Jack, so that we can actually one-hit Pokemon if they have a full bench for just Double Colorless, which is pretty crazy. Like I say, it combines well for killing Shaymins, and just in general increasing our Evil Ball output. That's pretty awesome as well. And we can actually do a bit more than just the 30 on Yveltal. It starts becoming relevant damage if it starts getting into 50, because then we can jump into stand-in and then use Mind Jack. Even if they don't have a full bench, we can start taking 2-hit KOs on EXs. So this deck does have a bit of explosive speed, and Muscle Band really helps us out there. Finally, for energy, it's all pretty standard. The 4 Double Colorless works so nicely with Yveltal. It means that we can Sky Return against Night March players, which is also a really clutch play sometimes, preventing them from killing any EXs during a game, and then we try and win prize trade by using something like a Mind Jack on a Shaymin, so that's always an option for us, and of course it does work with a Zoroark, so that's that. And finally, just the 7 Dark Energy. We can recycle it as best we can with Oblivion Wing early on. We have Letter to search it all out, and we do have Super Rod if ever we get ridiculously low, so I feel like 11 is a decent count for this deck. It's enough that we can commit to a big Yveltal and still have enough for our other attackers, so overall I'm pretty happy with the list. So there we go, guys, and I'll be back momentarily with a few battles. So we found ourselves a game against Rayrun, or Rayrun I should say. What am I doing? Let's flip a coin. I'm going to go for heads. We do win the flip. And I'll choose to go first here. So, our opening hand looks pretty okay, depending on what we get off these trainers' mails. We do have that Zoroark piece. We have VS Seeker as well, so if we can hit a Battle Compressor, we could be fine here. Looks like we're up against the Mega Manectric, and this can be one of our more difficult matchups. We do have Zoroark Break. It's going to be a very good option in this game, so let's see if he can really strut his stuff in this matchup, which otherwise would be pretty horrific for Yveltal players. So let's see what we can do here. Obviously, Yveltal EX is not going to be the perfect candidate for us using this game. Probably going to try and stick with Zoroark as long as we can, really. We'll take that cheeky card from the mulligan. We find another Zoroark piece. The Regice isn't going to be an issue at all because we have so many good options. We can bench Zorua off the top, which is nice. I'm going to go for the Trainer's Mail straight away. And nothing too helpful. I'm going to take the Judge just to... yeah. I'm going to take the Judge just for some sort of drawing option. I probably won't use it this turn because holding Zoroark and DCE means we could use a stand-in next turn. So probably not going to use Judge this turn. I'll try and use this other Mail. And the Fan Club is actually exactly what I was looking for here. If I'd hit Compressor, I would have VS Seek'd a Fan Club in, but we just got it on its own, which is pretty fortunate. So we're going to look to find 2 more Zoruas, I think, if we do have them in deck here. And it looks like we just got the one Zorua, so one has been prized. We've also prized Shaymin. I'm going to check how many breaks we have in the deck. There's one. And we have both break evolutions. That's a really good thing for us. So I think I just want the non-EX Yveltal. I don't think we really need Shaymin here. I mean, I could Ultra Ball away Judge and Zoroark, I guess, but they're so important in this matchup that I don't really want to. So let's just grab these two. I don't have anything to attach this turn, just in case my opponent plays any sorts of hammers. It is a Yveltal deck, though, so... no, it's a Manectric deck, so I'm not sure how many they will play. It might even be worth me dropping it just to try and get value this turn to potentially get extra attachments. So let's go for that here. Start setting up Zorua. I'm pretty sure we won't be threatened this turn, so as long as he's not playing hammers, that should be a decent decision. So, looks like next turn for us we can get a couple of Zoroark developed and then judge our opponent, trying to limit them. Wow, very slow start from our opponent. Don't think I even want to judge here, because he really set up nothing. Which probably means I'm going to go for the Shaymin this turn. We can double Zoroark, which is pretty awesome. And I'm just going to Ultra Ball away Judge and VS Seeker, because we really don't need those. Let's grab Shaymin EX. I don't think... Do I want to attach the Double Colorless? It really doesn't hurt me if I do. But at the moment, Mind Jack's doing 10. So it's kind of better if I find even a Dark Energy to do an Oblivion Wing. It could be more relevant damage. So I'm happy just to set up for this amount. We do hit Dark Energy and Muscle Band, which is really nice. I think I want to commit both to Yveltal just to put some more pressure on this turn, so that we can use Oblivion Wing here. I'm going to hold the Stadium as well. It's not too important for me right now. It might be able to discard Shaymin later for us, so that we don't have two prizes as a glaring opportunity for our opponent. But really right now, not too important. We just see another attachment to the Regice. We see a Spirit Link go onto Regice. Really don't know why. Another Regice goes onto the bench. And there's a Shaymin. So he wants to take cards out of his hand for a larger setup. That makes sense. I wonder if he was banking on us using Judge last turn because he had a bit of a bad hand. But you do see that Ice Beam, and even if he does flip heads, it looks like he got tails, but we would have been fine even if he had hit heads, because we can of course use stand-in, and we do have that float stone. So at the moment we are doing 3, 6, 70. 70 is enough with Zoroark, so that's pretty nice. So I guess we'll just attach the Double Colorless here. I will use that stand-in. And I'm also going to use a compressor, trying to get rid of a few less important things in the deck. I'm definitely going to throw at least one Dark Energy in here just to help us out with Oblivion Wings later on. I think Xerosic is pretty useless in this matchup, and Hex Maniac might not be too crucial either. Let's see, it really annoys me that Compressor, once you make that third choice, it doesn't let you look at your deck anymore. I think Hex Maniac is probably our best option here, because we have Lysandre in hand. That might have been something I would have targeted just for VS Seeker plays, but for now, the only threat on our opponent's board is actually this Regice, so we want to use Mind Jack to finish it off quite convincingly there. Already you're seeing how effective this card is at being a Regice killer, something that Yveltal decks has had to overcome and has struggled to overcome in the recent past, but now we do have Zoroark. That really helps us out. So looking into next turn, we actually get hit with an Ace Trainer. We didn't have the strongest of hands, so that's fine. And that hand's going to get shuffled back in. And we actually get a really nice Ace Trainer. That's pretty much ideal for us. We see an energy go onto the Manectric onto the bench. Our opponent also plays Rough Seas down. And we see a setup from our opponent. So it might be that I go for Judge next turn, depending on if he plays anything else down onto his board. So far we're hitting 100 of Zoroark. I would love to get an extra... I'd love to get a Muscle Band on, or if our opponent plays down another bench, it would be great to kill this Regice as well. Really putting our opponent on the clock here. I think I'm trying to consider where I want to break evolve. Probably to the bench right now. Oh, wow. We actually get Evo Soda, so we can do both. That's incredible. So we've done very well to get 2 Zoroark breaks set up in what? Is that 3 turns, I think? That's pretty crazy. So there we go. 2 Zoroark breaks. Now we're out of range from Manectric and the Mega Man, so these are going to stick around for a little bit. I'm debating whether or not I want to use Judge here. So far, Mind Jack's not getting the KO. I think I want to dig for Muscle Band. So far, we've only gone through 1. So even though it does get rid of a VS Seeker, I think Sycamore's the thing I want to use here. Because I guess you could say that we're spending the VS Seeker for Judge anyway. So let's just dig for Muscle Band. We do indeed get it, which is awesome. So we'll stick that onto our Zoroark. I think I want to actually attach a regular Dark to the bench Zoroark break here, just so that we can get a foul play going. Actually, you know what? Let's use some other cards first. Let's use our Trainer's Mail first. We get Parallel City. That's not too helpful right now. We want to keep this bench as best we can. The rough season is not affecting us so far, so let's go for Mind Jack. To hit that 120, taking our second prize of the game. Our opponent is really struggled to set up so far. We get Super Rod off that prize. That's not too helpful to us. The only energy in our discard so far is one that I put there myself, so not too great. But it looks like we're going to see a Spirit Link from our opponent. Oh wow, if we can discard this energy next turn, we can get if our opponent Mega Evolves, we can get more energy attachments, which could be awesome for us. We do see a Lightning onto the Manectric. Has he got the Mega? Is the question. We see an Ultra Ball, so it looks like he's digging for the Mega here. He probably needs to find another attacker as well for his bench for a Turbo Bolt, because there are a couple of waters in there in his discard pile. There is that Mega Manectric. There's a Regice. That's not too worrying for this deck at all, really. You've seen how I can already one-shot them. And we do get hit with a Turbo Bolt for 110. So this one's the one with the Muscle Band. I think I want to keep this one on the bench so that it can one-shot Regice. So we're going to use stand-in with this one. We can even at some point copy the Regice's attack, which could be interesting as well. We're going to Float Stone this dude, and I'm going to put Parallel City into play just to get the Shaymin EX off of our board. So let's flip it this way. And kill our Shaymin so that it's not a catcher target. Because we don't need anything else on our bench, really, do we? I'm going to play down Ultra Ball to get the energy in the discard pile so that we can Turbo Bolt that back. And I'm going to grab Yveltal EX just to thin our deck from it. And then I'm going to do the same thing again, getting rid of the other Yveltal that we pull off of this Ultra Ball. Because we don't need them. We really don't need them this game. So the only thing I want here is a Darkness Energy off of this Sycamore. And looks like we whiff it. So we can just use Mind Jack. That's also an option for us. The only thing that would have been nice is so that we could set up this Yveltal on the bench to use Darkness Blade. That would have been nice. It's not too crucial though, so I think I can just manually attach here and go for the Mind Jack. Hitting 100 damage isn't too bad. We've taken out the Rough Seas, so hopefully we can get a knockout next turn. Our deck is starting to run low, but we are really threatening our opponent quite a lot here. The Rough Seas comes back into play, so that's an issue for us. I think missing that Turbo Bolt was kind of relevant, really. Either way, he's not going to be able to one-shot our Zoroark break unless he Lysandres the other one. And yeah, we just see a Turbo Bolt for 110. So now we pick up the Dark Energy. That's obviously fantastic. Okay, so Mind Jack doing 90, 100, 120 with this guy. That's not really good damage. Although we could Lysandre for pressure here. How many VS Seekers have we gone through? We've gone through 2, and we've got an 11 card deck. If I Lysandre this turn, kill Shaymin, I can set up this Yveltal to actually kill the following Shaymin if I have a Lysandre. So I think that's the route I want to go down. I'm not too fussed about losing both Zoroarks in the process. So let's go for that. Let's Lysandre Shaymin. Start setting up this Yveltal. I want to bench some more stuff and play them down just so that in case we get hit by another ace trainer or something like a judge. So we can just use Mind Jack. This is the one with Muscle Band on, so we are getting 1 hit this time. And 2 prizes away. We're just going to try and rush our opponent for prize trade. He's got 1 card in hand, so I doubt it's going to be able to pick up this Shaymin. And, oh wow, we actually picked Lysandre off of our prizes, which is awesome. So we should have game next turn. I think he needs to kill this turn for us to not have game. Muscle Band here. The Floatstone's here, so I'll go into this one just a free retreat. So that's what we're looking to do. We see a Mega Turbo off the Trainer's Mail. That's not what he wants. And you can see how Zoroark has really helped. The Yveltal matchup is traditionally awful for... no, the Manectric matchup is awful for Yveltal, but with the introduction of the Zoroark Break, we have completely turned that on its head, which is pretty awesome. And we've won in a couple of turns, really. That was very fast work for Zoroark and the Break. And let's just make sure the Yveltal does have the right amount of energy, so we can freely retreat with that Floatstone and come on in with the Darkness Blade, finishing off the last Shaymin. So very quick work there, taking those 6 prizes. It shows the speed of Zoroark, and that was pretty awesome. So hope you enjoyed that, guys. A victory against a quite difficult matchup, some would think, in the past at least. So that does demonstrate the power of Zoroark, I think. We didn't even need to use Yveltal EX, something that's pretty unheard of up until this point. So hope you all enjoyed. Leave your comments down below what you think about Zoroark and its Break evolution. I've been Joe from OmniPoke, and we'll be back with more breakthrough decks soon. So stick around, like, comment and subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time.